Ladies and gentlemen, let me offer you a truth so stark, so unsettling that most people spend their lives avoiding it. If you are truly different, truly awake, truly walking your own path, you will walk it alone. You may have noticed this already. Perhaps you've felt it in the conversations that feel empty, in the eyes that do not meet yours with true understanding, in the friendships that seem to crumble when you refuse to fit into the mold. And so I ask you, do you feel alone? Do you wonder why the more you grow, the fewer people remain? This is not a curse. It is not misfortune. It is the cost of awakening. A chosen one by their very nature is set apart. They are not here to blend in. They are here to see what others cannot, to understand what others will not, and to challenge what others fear. And the moment you do that, you become a mirror reflecting truths that make people uncomfortable. And what do most people do when faced with discomfort? They turn away. You see, most friendships are not based on truth. They are based on agreement, on shared illusions, on a silent pact to not disturb each other's dreams. But a chosen one is not here to dream. They are here to wake up. So let me ask you, if you feel alone, if you feel misunderstood, if you feel as though the world has turned its back on you, could it be because you have stepped beyond it? Stay with me, because by the end of this talk you may no longer see loneliness as a tragedy, but as a gateway, a threshold, a rite of passage into something far greater than mere friendship. Are you ready to see what lies beyond? Let's begin. The loneliness of the elevated is not a condition thrust upon the chosen one, but rather a natural consequence of their ascent. The higher one climbs, the fewer companions they find, for the air grows thin at great heights, and most people prefer the comfort of the valley. It is not that they are incapable of climbing, it is simply that they have no reason to. The world below is filled with distractions, familiar faces, and the reassuring hum of collective validation. But the chosen one is different. They are called to ascend, driven by an inner knowing that there is something beyond the ordinary, something beyond the endless cycles of repetition that most call life. And in answering this call, they leave behind those who were never meant to follow. At first, the loneliness is startling. The chosen one, like anyone else, was once part of the crowd. They knew laughter, companionship, the warmth of shared experiences. But as they began to question, to see beyond the veils, something changed. Their words no longer resonated with those around them. Their thoughts became difficult to translate into conversations that once felt effortless. The world they once shared with others became smaller, narrower, constrained by unspoken rules that now felt suffocating. The realization dawns gradually, at first a missed call, a fading conversation, a growing sense of detachment. Then, like a tidal wave, it crashes, you are alone, and yet this solitude is not a punishment. It is an initiation. The chosen one must come to understand that loneliness is not a void, but a space where transformation occurs, where the self is stripped of all external definitions and forced to stand on its own. The loneliness of the elevated is not the loneliness of the forsaken, it is the loneliness of those who can no longer pretend. When the chosen one sees the world for what it is, its illusions, its self-imposed prisons, its fragile social contracts, they cannot unsee it. They cannot return to the comfort of ignorance, nor can they expect those still asleep to walk with them into the unknown. People fear those who do not need them. The chosen one in their solitude radiates a kind of self-sufficiency that unsettles the masses. Friendships are often built on unspoken agreements to maintain each other's illusions, to offer distractions from the deeper questions, to reinforce the narratives that make existence more palatable. But when someone steps outside of that paradigm, when they begin to question, to challenge, to see beyond, they disrupt the balance. They remind others of what they refuse to acknowledge within themselves. And so, rather than face their own discomfort, the crowd distances itself. This is the paradox of the chosen one's journey. To awaken is to walk alone, but to walk alone is to truly awaken. The loneliness of the elevated is not emptiness, it is the birth of something greater. The burden of insight is a weight that cannot be shared, a silent load carried by those who see beyond the veil of ordinary perception. It is not something sought after, nor is it something that can be easily discarded. Once the mind expands, once the eyes are opened, there is no returning to the comfortable blindness that once allowed for effortless belonging. To know deeply, to see what others refuse to see, is to exist in a space apart from them, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. The chosen one does not stand alone by choice. They stand alone because the nature of their understanding isolates them. There is a reason why people cling so desperately to illusions. The world as it is far from simple. It is not the structured, predictable place that most would like to believe it is. Beneath the surface of social norms, beneath the routines and the expectations, lies a truth that is unsettling. Most people do not want to know this truth. They do not want to see beyond the masks they wear or the carefully curated identities they present to the world. The chosen one, however, does not have that luxury. Their mind penetrates the illusions not because they wish to dismantle them, but because they cannot help but see through them. And in doing so, they unsettle those around them. People do not hate the chosen one for who they are. They hate them for what they reveal. To stand in the presence of someone who understands the deeper layers of reality is to feel one's own illusions begin to crack. It is an uncomfortable experience. It is easier to reject the chosen one than it is to question everything one has ever believed. And so society pushes them away, labels them as outcasts, calls them strange, difficult, or unrelatable. Not because they have done anything wrong, but because they make others aware of their own fears, their own limitations, their own refusal to see. There is a loneliness that comes with knowing too much. The chosen one finds that conversations which once felt fulfilling now seem shallow. The things that amuse the many no longer hold the same appeal. The social dances that others perform seeking approval, avoiding discomfort, maintaining an illusion of togetherness become painfully obvious. And so they withdraw. Not because they wish to be alone, but because they can no longer pretend. Yet this burden is not without purpose. Insight is not meant to be comfortable. It is not meant to provide companionship in the conventional sense. It is meant to transform, to elevate, to push one beyond the limitations of collective thought. The chosen one does not suffer because they suffer because they wish others could see as well. But wisdom is not something that can be given, it must be sought. And until others are ready, the chosen one must walk alone, carrying the weight of understanding in solitude. Fear of the unknown is one of the most primal forces that govern human behavior. It is the invisible chain that keeps people bound to the familiar, no matter how limited or confining that familiarity may be. The chosen one, however, exists outside of this boundary. They are not content with what is known, what is safe, what is accepted. Their very nature compels them to step beyond, to explore the spaces that others fear to tread. And for this they are met with resistance, not because they are wrong, but because their existence itself is a threat to the comfort of the many. People are not necessarily drawn to truth, they are drawn to certainty. They crave stability, a predictable world where everything makes sense within the framework they have been taught to accept. The chosen one disrupts this. They challenge the foundations upon which others have built their identities, their beliefs, their sense of security. It is not that the chosen one seeks conflict, but their very presence becomes an unspoken confrontation. They do not fit into the patterns of society, and society does not know how to deal with what it does not understand. And so, rather than embracing the unknown, people reject those who embody it. There is an unspoken rule in human relationships: do not disturb the dream. Friendships, social groups, even entire communities are often built upon a shared agreement to uphold certain illusions. These illusions create a sense of belonging, a shared narrative that gives people comfort. But the chosen one does not adhere to this agreement. They question, they see, they reveal. And in doing so, they become a disruption, a reminder of everything people would rather ignore. It is easier to exile the one who sees than to face the truths they bring to light. This is why the chosen one finds themselves alone. It is not that they wish to be isolated, nor is it that they cannot form bonds with others. It is that they represent something that most people are unwilling to confront. They are the embodiment of uncertainty, of change, of a reality that is not as solid as it seems. And nothing terrifies people more than the loss of what they believe to be stable. But fear of the unknown is not a reflection of the chosen one, it is a reflection of those who fear them. It is a mirror held up to those who are not yet ready to step beyond what they know. And so they turn away, they avoid, they distance themselves, not because the chosen one is unworthy of companionship, but because they are a reminder of the vast, uncontrollable mystery that lies beyond the comfort of the familiar. The chosen one does not choose to be alone. They simply exist in a space where most fear to follow. And until the world is ready to embrace the unknown, they will walk their path in solitude. The illusion of friendship is one of the most persistent and comforting lies that society upholds. People believe that friendship is built on loyalty, shared experiences, and mutual understanding, but more often than not, it is built on something far more fragile, the need for validation. Most friendships are not based on truth, but on a silent agreement to reinforce each other's narratives, to keep each other comfortable, to avoid the discomfort of solitude. But the chosen one is different. They are not here to be comforted by illusions, they are here to see reality as it is. And in doing so, they shatter the very foundation upon which most friendships stand. The chosen one does not seek approval, nor do they need constant affirmation from others. They do not play the social games that keep relationships intact, the small talk, the empty reassurances, the avoidance of difficult truths. They do not pretend to be someone they are not, nor do they expect others to. But society thrives on such pretenses. People form bonds by agreeing to see the world in the same way, by avoiding difficult conversations, by pretending that everything is fine even when it is not. When a chosen one refuses to participate in these unspoken agreements, they quickly find themselves standing apart. Friendship, for most, is not about truth, it is about comfort. It is about having someone who will tell you what you want to hear, who will reassure you that your beliefs, your choices, your view of the world are correct. The chosen one does not provide this comfort. They challenge, they question, they see beyond the surface. And for this they become inconvenient. They make people uncomfortable because they are unwilling to uphold the illusions that most rely on to feel safe. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey where they realize that many of the friendships they once held were not real, that the people who once claimed to care for them disappear the moment they stop being a reflection of what those people want to see, that the bonds they thought were unbreakable were, in fact, conditional contingent on their ability to conform, to agree, to play the role that was expected of them. When they stop playing that role, they watch as their friendships dissolve, as people pull away, as conversations become strained or non-existent. This realization is painful, but it is necessary, because true friendship, real, unshakable connection cannot be built on illusion. It can only be built on truth. And truth is rare. Most people do not seek it, and even fewer are willing to build relationships upon it. The chosen one does not have zero friends because they are unlovable or because they do not desire companionship. They have zero friends because they refuse to uphold falsehoods, and in doing so they eliminate all but the rarest of connections. Until they find another who sees as they see, they walk alone, not because they want to, but because they cannot do otherwise. The path of authenticity is a lonely one, not because the chosen one desires solitude, but because authenticity itself is a form of rebellion. The world is not built to reward those who are true to themselves. It is designed to reward those who conform, who fit neatly into categories, who follow the scripts that have been laid out for them. The chosen one, however, does not follow scripts. They do not wear masks to be accepted. They do not dilute their truth to make others comfortable, and they do not betray themselves for the sake of belonging. And in a world that thrives on imitation, nothing is more unsettling than someone who is entirely unapologetically real. From an early age, people are taught that acceptance comes at a cost, the cost of blending in, of agreeing even when they disagree, of prioritizing being liked over being honest. The chosen one, however, refuses to pay this price. They value truth over approval, depth over shallow connection, and freedom over fitting in. But this refusal to conform has consequences. The more authentic they become, the more they disrupt the expectations of those around them. And as they step into their true selves, they find that many begin to pull away, not because they have changed for the worse, but because they have changed in a way that others do not understand. Most relationships are not built to withstand authenticity. They are built on compromise, on unspoken agreements to maintain the status quo. When someone chooses to live in full honesty without pretending, without seeking permission, without bending to the will of others, it disturbs the fragile balance of these relationships. People begin to feel exposed, as though the chosen one's very existence is a challenge to their own way of life. They begin to question why this person is so free when they themselves are not. And rather than face their own inauthenticity, they distance themselves from the one who reminds them of it. This is the paradox of authenticity. The more true one is to themselves, the fewer people can truly stand beside them. It is not because the chosen one is incapable of love, of friendship, of connection. It is because most people are unwilling to meet them in that space of raw, unfiltered truth. They prefer relationships that are easy, that do not ask too much of them, that allow them to remain comfortable in their illusion. The chosen one, simply by being who they are, demands something deeper, and that is why they often walk alone. But authenticity cannot be sacrificed for companionship, because to do so would be to lose everything. The chosen one understands this. They know that 1,000 shallow connections can never replace a single genuine one. And so they choose to walk their own path, even if it means walking it alone, not because they do not long for connection, but because they will not trade their truth for the illusion of it. Solitude as a teacher is one of the most difficult lessons for the chosen one to embrace. At first, the loneliness feels like a punishment, an exile from the warmth of human connection. The world that once felt familiar now seems distant. The people who once surrounded them now feel unreachable. But this solitude is not empty. It is not meaningless. It is, in fact, the very thing that shapes the chosen one into who they are meant to be. Because in solitude, there is no one left to distract them from themselves. There is no noise to drown out the deeper questions, no external validation to rely upon, no comforting illusions to soften the edges of truth. In solitude, one must face themselves entirely. And in doing so, they transform. At first, there is resistance. The mind searches for ways to escape, to fill the silence, to reach for something, anything that will bring back the sense of belonging that has been lost. But as time passes, the chosen one begins to see what this solitude is truly offering. It strips away everything that is not real. It burns through the need for approval, the craving for validation, the dependence on external relationships for a sense of self-worth. And in that fire, something new emerges, something unbreakable. The chosen one begins to realize that they are not alone in the way they once thought. Because solitude is not the absence of connection, it is the presence of a deeper, more profound relationship with oneself, with existence, with the very fabric of reality. This is why so many people fear being alone. It is not the silence that frightens them, it is what the silence reveals. Most people define themselves by the reflections they see in others. They are who they are because of their roles in relationships, because of the way they are perceived, because of the stories they tell themselves about where they belong. But when all of that is stripped away, when there is no one left to affirm or deny them, who are they then? The chosen one is forced to confront this question, and in doing so, they uncover something most never will: their true self. Not the self that performs for acceptance, not the self that conforms for belonging, but the self that exists beyond all of that. The self that does not need to be understood by others to exist fully. Through solitude, the chosen one gains a strength that cannot be taken away. They become sovereign over their own being, no longer seeking permission to be who they are. They learn that companionship, when it comes, must be based on truth rather than need. They understand that their solitude was never a punishment, but a gift and initiation into a deeper way of being. And by the time they emerge from it, they are no longer the same. They do not need the world to accept them, because they have already accepted themselves. The chosen one's journey is not an easy one, but it is a necessary one. To see beyond illusions, to walk a path untraveled, to embrace authenticity at the cost of belonging, these are not signs of misfortune, but of transformation. The loneliness they experience is not a curse. It is the fire that refines them, the silence that reveals truth, the solitude that teaches them who they truly are. It is tempting to mourn the loss of friendships, to long for the comfort of belonging, to question whether the price of awareness is too high. But the chosen one must remember they were never meant to fit in. They were never meant to seek validation from those who fear the depths they are willing to explore. They walk alone, not because they are unworthy of companionship, but because they are unwilling to sacrifice truth for the illusion of it. And yet, this path is not without its rewards. For those who embrace their solitude, who refuse to shrink themselves to be accepted, who choose truth over comfort, these are the ones who, in time, attract others like them. Not many, not easily, but when they do, the connection is real, unshakable, rooted in something far deeper than convenience or validation. So, to those who feel alone, who feel misunderstood, who wonder why they walk this road, seemingly without company, understand this: your solitude is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are exactly where you are meant to be. And the ones who truly see you, who truly understand, will find you when the time is right. Until then, stand firm, keep walking, and know that you are never truly alone.